Hi everyone, welcome to this exciting new podcast for the first year ECE students in sections 2 and section 4. This will be the final podcast of the semester, the final official podcast anyways, and so we will be covering the weeks of November 27th and December 4th. We're going to take you right to the end of the semester. So let's dive right in. If you have not already done so, go and get your calendar or your agenda or your phone or your list of assignments, however it is that you are keeping track of everything that you have to do. And let's look at some assignments. So we are looking here at the master schedule for those last 2 weeks of the semester, 27th of November and December 4th. Let's first look at the week of November 27th. For Monday, November 27th, Jean would like you to read chapter 12 of the textbook, Handling Children's Aggressive Behavior, a very important chapter. Educators have to have a lot of strategies to deal with children's aggressive behavior and maintain their relationships at the same time. So that's an important chapter to read for Monday, November 27th in your affective relationships class. Next thing I'd like to highlight is that on Wednesday, November 29th, the sections for the observing course lab are flipped. So we're going to do the flip-flop of the time for the labs on the 29th in observing. And then the last thing I'd like to highlight for this week is that on Thursday, November 30th, your final exam in Intro to ECE is happening, and that is worth 20% of your final grade. All right, that's all the information I have for that week. If you think there are other assignments, something in Child Development 1, for example, best to check with your teacher. All right, now we're looking at the last week of classes. Short week ends on December 6th on a Wednesday, but there is a lot of work to do that week. So first of all, in affective relationships on Monday, December 4th, it is your third and last test in Jean's class, and that is worth 25% of your final grade. Jean has told me that this time around he has not given you the questions in advance, but that he has in his classes, lectures, and other class material that he's covered, made it very clear what is important and what you need to understand and what you need to learn and remember for this last test. You might also want to check out my other podcast series. I didn't get 100% on Jean's test. The fourth and final installment of that podcast series will be coming out in the next couple of days, and all of those 4 podcasts taken together will help you work towards getting 100% on Jean's test. All right, also on Monday in my observing course, your analysis assignment is due, and that is worth 20% of your final grade. And I just have some reminders about that. The analysis assignment has 2 parts. The first part is your group part, which is the summary of everything that your group has observed, and I will be talking about how to summarize in upcoming classes. That is worth 5% on this assignment and 5% of your final grade. You will be working with the same people as you worked on the group observation plan with. So that is one part of the analysis assignment. The other part is your own individual work, and that is worth 15% on this assignment. And one element of that will be all of your own recorded observations. That's worth 10%. So everything that you wrote in terms of observations in those 2 weeks that we were in the lab, you hand all of that in. And then you will also be creating a list of inferences, your analysis in the form of inferences. This is worth 5% of this assignment. And just a few pointers there. First of all, this is a list, so it can be in list or point form, but as much as possible within that, try and use complete sentences, but you don't need an introduction or a conclusion or anything like that. Second reminder that the inferences that you are going to write are about everything your group recorded, all the observations from everybody in your group, not just your own. And so you're really analyzing through your inferences the totality of what your group observed. Third of all, your list can include inferences that other members of your group brought up and shared at group discussions. We've been having those regularly in the observing course, and so you can include that analysis in your individual list of inferences, but just make sure that you put everything into your own words. What I don't want is everybody in the group to have the exact same list of inferences, just copy pasted one from the other. That's cheating, and you will get 0 on the assignment. So make sure you put any analysis, stuff that came out of your own brain and stuff that came out of other group members' brains, put all of that into your own words. So that's the analysis assignment. The last thing that I would like to draw your attention to in terms of observing before the final assignment is that we will have a last lab on Wednesday, December 6th. So be sure to come to that. And then later on that afternoon, this is the final assignment, your research paper is due. In observing, it is worth 20% of your final grade. Many of you have asked for an extension on that assignment. I think that's a good idea. And if you are interested in that, I am giving away for free 1-week extensions. And so the new due date would be Wednesday, the 13th of December. The catch there being that there is no online submission of the research paper. You will have to bring it to the college. So that's it. That's the semester, the last 2 weeks in a nutshell. I hope you've had a great semester. I've had a lot of fun working with you. And of course, if in the new year you feel inspired to share any great tips, suggestions, resources, tools, ideas that you have for your fellow ECE students about how to stay organized and manage time effectively and efficiently, send me that information and you could become a podcast star in 2018. So exciting. As always, post your comments on YouTube. If you have anything you want to say about the podcast, you can get a full transcript underneath the video in the comments section. And stay tuned for the next announcement, because even though I said this was the last official podcast of the semester, I'm actually working on a little special something, a holiday edition of the podcast featuring all of your ECE teachers. So stay tuned for that. I will see you in observing, but if I forget to say this, have a wonderful holiday break, everyone, and I will see you in 2018. That's it for now. Bye.